This episode of Pod Session is brought to you by TopNaturalHealth.com, your go-to source for nature-based supplements, skincare, and anti-aging products. Visit their site for special promo code pricing on all of the products mentioned in this episode. Now here's your hosts.
Okay, so you ever feel like you're constantly battling stress? Like trying to meditate in a hurricane?
Yeah, me too. And, I'm always looking for new ways to deal with that feeling. So that's why we're doing a deep dive today into those supplements for stress reduction.
Yeah.
Especially this one everyone's talking about, Cortisync.
It's a hot topic for sure. And there's some really cool science behind these supplements, like how they actually work in your body. So we're talking about more than just like your average chill pill.
Exactly. It's not about masking those symptoms. It's like getting to the root of how your body actually handles stress. And it all kind of starts with understanding this thing called cortisol.
Okay, cortisol.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Isn't that the stress hormone everyone's always trying to get a grip on?
Yeah. But here's the thing though, cortisol gets kind of a bad rap, It's actually super important for a lot of bodily functions. Like it regulates your sleep-wake cycle, your metabolism, even your immune system. It's just when your cortisol levels are constantly high from our, modern lifestyle that it becomes a problem.
Okay, so it's like that friend who's great in small doses.
Right.
But too much of them, it's like chaos.
Exactly. A perfect analogy. And when we're talking about chronic stress, that chaos can look like weight gain, difficulty sleeping, anxiety, even like a weakened immune system. So we have to find ways to manage those cortisol levels. And that's where these supplements come in.
Okay, so let's talk about those. The articles that you sent over mentioned adaptogens. I've heard that term thrown around a lot. Honestly, I always thought it was a trendy buzzword. What's the real story with adaptogens?
Yeah, I hear you. There's a lot of hype out there. But adaptogens are not a fad. They're actually ancient remedies, herbs and even some mushrooms that have been used for centuries in traditional medicine, like in Ayurveda. What's really cool about them is their ability to, as the name suggests, help your body adapt to stress better.
So instead of just covering up the stress, they actually change how my body responds to it.
Exactly. It's like giving your system a crash course in stress management. And they do this by working on a specific pathway in your body called the, let me see if I can say this right, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis for short.
HPA axis, catchy. So what does this HPA axis do? How do adaptogens work their magic on it?
Okay, so think of your HPA axis as your body's main stress response system. It's like the communication highway between your brain and those adrenal glands, which are responsible for pumping out those stress hormones like cortisol. And when you're stressed out all the time, this highway is jammed with traffic, so those cortisol levels stay high. Adaptogens are like the traffic controllers, helping to regulate the flow and prevent those long stretches of high cortisol.
That makes so much sense. So it's not about eliminating stress completely. It's more about helping our bodies deal with it better.
Yes. And different adaptogens have different strengths. Two of the most studied for stress are ashwagandha and Rhodiola rosea.
Okay, so I have to admit, ashwagandha is the one that really got me interested. Mostly because I can never say it right on the first try. But what is it about it that makes it so good for stress?
Well, it's not just a funny name. Ashwagandha has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for forever to fight stress and help people feel better overall. And what's really cool is that modern science is actually confirming what those traditional healers have known for a really long time. Studies are showing that it can actually really lower cortisol levels.
Okay, when you say really lower, we're talking hard numbers here, right?
Yeah, for sure. Studies have shown that ashwagandha can reduce those cortisol levels by up to 32%. That's pretty significant. It's actually one of the most effective natural cortisol reducers out there.
32%.
Whoa.
That's huge. So how does it actually work? Is it just telling those adrenal glands to chill out?
Basically, yes. Ashwagandha interacts with those HPA axis pathways we were talking about before, helping to regulate the body's stress response and bring those cortisol levels back to a healthy place. It's like a little nudge to your system, reminding it to just breathe and relax.
So it's like a chill pill, but without having to actually take a pill. Okay, I can get behind that.
Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. While ashwagandha is calming things down, another adaptogen called Rhodiola, rosea, takes a different approach. It's all about fighting that fatigue, the mental and the physical. So if you're feeling totally burned out, struggling to focus, Rhodiola could be your saving grace.
Wait, so is it like an energy drink, but without the jitters and that awful crash later?
Yeah. You got it. And there was this one study that really showed this. Researchers took a look at physicians who work those night shifts. Talk about a recipe for fatigue and your brain just being fried. They actually found that Rhodiola rosea made a real difference in these doctors' mental performance and helped them feel less tired after only a few weeks.
Wow, if it can get those doctors through a night shift, imagine what it can do for the rest of us.
I'm curious, though, how's rhodiola different from ashwagandha? They're both adaptogens, right?
That's right. But they work a little differently.
Yeah.
Well, ashwagandha mainly focuses on regulating cortisol and calming that stress response. Rhodiola seems to have a more direct effect on neurotransmitters in your brain.
Okay, well, hold on. Break that down for me. What are neurotransmitters? What's rhodiola doing to them? Okay, so imagine neurotransmitters, like little messengers in your brain. They have a huge role in your mood focus energy levels, even things like motivation and pleasure. Rhodiola seems to affect the levels of key neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. Those are the ones that make you feel good.
Okay, so it's not just like masking fatigue, it's actually messing with those underlying brain chemicals that make you feel energized and focused. That's pretty cool.
It really is. And get this, there's some research out there that suggests that rhodiola could actually protect your brain too, like shielding it from the damaging effects of stress in the long run.
So it's like a bodyguard for your brain, protecting it from stress. I'll take 2. But before we move on, I have to ask about something else I saw in the articles. Oxytocin. It was mentioned in the context of managing stress. And I know it as the love hormone. Am I wrong for thinking that cuddling my dog is a stress reduction strategy?
You are totally on the right track. It's not usually something you'd find in a bottle, but oxytocin is a naturally occurring thing in your body, and it has a huge role in how we deal with stress.
Hold on a sec. Neuropeptide. That's a mouthful. How does oxytocin fit into all of this?
Okay, so neuropeptides are like those tiny messengers we talked about, but instead of going through your blood, they're zipping around your brain, sending signals that affect everything from your mood to how you act socially. Oxytocin in particular is released when you have those positive social interactions.
Hey guys, just a quick reminder that today's episode is brought to you by topnaturalhealth.com, home of the world's #1 top-rated nature-based supplements, skincare, and anti-aging products. Be sure to visit their site at topnaturalhealth.com for special promo code pricing for our listeners. Now, back to our show.
You know, that warm and fuzzy feeling you get when you hug someone you care about or when you're with close friends, that's oxytocin doing its thing.
Okay, so maybe science really does back up my whole dogs cure everything theory. But really, how does oxytocin actually help with stress?
Well, studies show that oxytocin can lower your cortisol levels. It does this by influencing that same HPA axis we've been talking about, basically putting the brakes on too much cortisol production. But it's not just about lowering the bad stuff. Oxytocin also boosts those feelings of trust and connection and well-being, which also helps to protect you from the bad effects of stress.
So it's like a double whammy, turning down the stress hormones and turning up those good vibes.
Exactly. And the best part is, you don't need a prescription for more oxytocin. Making a point to do things that naturally boost it, like spending time with loved ones, cuddling your pets, even just giving someone a hug can make a huge difference.
I'll take any excuse to hug my dog more. But this is all super interesting, and it sounds like this Cortisync stuff is tapping into some powerful things with these ingredients.
It is, and that's what we'll get into next. What's so special about this product? What are the good and bad things about it? We'll unpack all of that after this.
Okay, so we're back, and we've talked a lot about cortisol and adaptogens and even like the power of hugs. But let's actually talk about this Cortisync product. What's the deal with this stuff?
So the cool thing about Cortisync is that it combines both ashwagandha and Rhodiola rosea. You get like a 2-for-1 deal for managing your stress. Ashwagandha for calming those racing thoughts and lowering that cortisol. And then the Rhodiola rosea to help with fatigue and give you an energy boost. It's like having a Zen master and a cheerleader in one bottle.
Okay, I love that. It's not just about like slapping a Band-Aid on the stress.
Yeah.
It's actually trying to address that lack of energy that usually comes with feeling super overwhelmed. But how does Cortisync actually compare to other stress supplements out there?
That's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of choices, right? You could go for just plain ashwagandha extract, or something like Serifos, which uses a different thing called phosphatidylserine. But what makes Cortisync different is that it blends those two approaches, tackling stress from different angles, addressing both the physical and the mental parts. Plus, they have that 67-day money-back guarantee.
Okay, well, that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
But even with the best ingredients, is there a right way to actually take these supplements? Does timing really matter?
Oh, absolutely. It's not like candy where you just pop it and hope for the best dosage, and timing can really make a difference, especially with supplements that affect your hormones and energy. For ashwagandha, studies show that taking around 250 to 600 milligrams a day is a good place to start.
What about Rhodiola rosea? Is it the same?
It's pretty similar, but with a little twist. For Rhodiola, research says that doses between 200 and 600 milligrams a day work well for fatigue and stress. But because it might give you energy, it's usually better to take it earlier in the day. You want to be up all night because of your stress cycle.
Yeah, to defeat the purpose.
Yeah.
But how do you know what dosage is right for you? Is it a lot of trial and error?
That's where talking to your doctor comes in. They can help figure out the right dosage and timing for you based on your needs, any medications you're on, your health history. Just because something's natural doesn't mean you can just take a ton of it.
So it's always best to check with a professional first.
Right.
But let's be real here. If I start taking Cortisync, can I just keep up with all my same stressful habits and expect it to magically fix everything?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? While these supplements can be super helpful for handling stress, they really work best as part of a bigger plan.
So it's not like some magic solution. You can't just take a supplement and ignore a bad lifestyle.
Exactly. It's like having a toolbox. You've got your ashwagandha hammer and your Rhodiola screwdriver, but you also need to use your other tools like exercise, a balanced diet, good sleep, and doing things to reduce stress like meditation or breathing exercises.
So it's more like a whole life renovation, not just a quick fix.
Right. And those lifestyle things, they're not just some vague advice. They have a real impact on how resilient you are mentally and emotionally, which is super important when dealing with the stresses of life.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's say you're doing all the right things. You're taking your Cortisync, you're hitting the gym, eating your veggies, but your mind is still racing with a million worries. What can you do to change that mental game when it comes to stress?
That's where those mental tools come in. Things like cognitive reframing and practicing mindfulness.
Those sound interesting, but break them down for me. Let's start with cognitive reframing. What is that exactly?
It's not as complicated as it sounds, I promise. It's basically about making a conscious choice to look at stressful situations from a new perspective.
So it's like giving your brain a new pair of glasses.
You got it. Instead of seeing a problem as this impossible thing, you start to see it as a chance to grow or learn something.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about pretending the challenges aren't there. It's about choosing to focus on the things you can control and looking for the good that might come out of it.
Okay, so like instead of freaking out about giving a big presentation at work, I could look at it as an opportunity to share what I know and connect with coworkers.
Exactly. Or instead of getting stressed out about traffic, you could use that time to listen to a podcast, maybe this one, and learn something new. It's about finding those little bits of positivity in the middle of all the crazy stuff.
I love that. Turning those stressful commutes into chances to learn. What about mindfulness? That seems to be a big thing these days.
It is. And for a good reason. Mindfulness is all about just being in the moment without judging anything. It's about noticing those thoughts and feelings without letting them take over.
Okay, but that's easier said than done right.
Yeah.
Especially when you're feeling overwhelmed.
It definitely takes practice. But even taking a few minutes every day to focus on your breath, to feel the sensations in your body, or to just appreciate the little things can make a huge difference. It gives you space between you and your thoughts, letting you pause before you react to the stress.
It's like hitting the pause button on that stress response.
Yeah.
I think we could all use a little more pausing in our lives.
I agree. And while we're talking about those mental tools, there's another really powerful one I want to mention: gratitude.
Gratitude. Okay, so I'm all about counting your blessings. But how does that actually help when you're like drowning in deadlines and feeling completely overwhelmed?
It's easy to get stuck in this negative spiral when we're stressed, focusing on everything that's going wrong. But when we actually try to be grateful, even for the small things, it can change our whole perspective and help us feel more positive.
So like instead of freaking out about the mountain of laundry I need to do, I could try to be grateful for having a comfy bed to sleep in tonight.
Exactly. Or instead of stressing over deadlines, you could take a minute to appreciate the skills and talents you have that let you do that work in the first place. It's about teaching your brain to focus on the good stuff, which can really affect your overall well-being.
Okay. I think I can feel those positive vibes already. But we've covered a lot here. Supplements, lifestyle changes, mental tools. It's kind of a lot to handle. Where do we even start?
That's the best part. You get to decide. Start with something that really speaks to you. Maybe it's trying ashwagandha or committing to 5 minutes of mindfulness each morning. Or maybe it's as simple as just writing down 3 things you're grateful for before bed.
So it's about finding what works for you personally, what fits into your life, and what you can actually keep doing.
Exactly. There's no magic formula for stress management. It's about experimenting, figuring out what works for you, and being kind to yourself through the whole process.
I like that. Experimentation and self-compassion.
Two
My favorite things. But before we finish up this whole stress-busting deep dive, there's one more thing I want to talk about, the power of connecting with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, sometimes stress is like a magnet for more stress, right?
You're telling me. And sometimes the best cure for that is being around people who get you and support you.
So it's not just about taking care of ourselves individually. It's also about putting effort into those relationships that make us feel like we belong and remind us that we're not alone in this crazy thing called life.
Absolutely. And this goes back to that oxytocin boost we talked about. Spending time with loved ones, having deep conversations, even just laughing with a friend can really impact how stressed we feel.
So sometimes the best way to de-stress is just to hang out with people.
It really can be. And don't underestimate a good hug. A hug from someone you care about can release all those feel-good hormones like oxytocin, which can fight those stress hormones and help you relax.
Okay, you've convinced me. Hugs for everyone.
Yeah.
But really, it's so easy to isolate ourselves when we're stressed. So remembering to reach out and connect with others is so important.
Definitely. And don't forget about your surroundings, too. They can either add to your stress or help you chill out. We can talk more about that later.
Okay, we're back. And it's funny how we think about stress as this thing inside us. You know, like something we just have to push through. But what if I told you that the stuff around us could actually be making us more stressed?
It's true. We're so focused on those individual coping things, which are important, of course, but our surroundings really affect how stressed we feel. And we don't even realize it most of the time.
It's like our environment is this little gremlin in the background whispering, hey, guess what? You're going to be stressed out now.
Exactly. And one of the best things you can do is to just look around and see where you can create a space that's more calming and supportive.
So it's like feng shui, but for stress relief.
I like that. Our physical spaces really do affect our mental and emotional states. Yeah. Clutter, for example, can be a huge energy suck. It bombards our senses and just creates this feeling of chaos, even if we don't realize it's happening.
Okay, this might be a little too real. My desk is basically a monument to organized chaos. Maybe that's why I can never focus.
It's definitely something to think about. Even little changes like clearing off your desk, making a special area for relaxing, or adding some plants to your place can really make a difference.
So out with the clutter, in with the plants. What about our digital spaces? Asking for a friend who may or may not have like a zillion unread emails.
Oh yeah, the digital overload is real. Those spaces can be just as stressful as our physical ones. Those constant notifications, the pressure to always be on, endlessly scrolling through social media. It's exhausting.
It's like our poor brains weren't meant to deal with this much information all the time. It's no wonder we're all so burned out.
I know, right? And that's why it's so important to set boundaries with technology. Choose specific times to check email and social media, turn off those notifications that you don't really need, and give yourself permission to just disconnect and unplug every now and then. Your brain and body will thank you.
I think I could feel myself relaxing just hearing you say that. But decluttering is one thing. How do you actually create a space that's intentionally calming? How do we get a little more zen in our surroundings?
This is where you can have some fun with it and tap into things that make you feel relaxed. Think about those calming colors like blues and greens, soft textures like cozy blankets and pillows, and don't forget about scent.
Okay, but like, what about listening to this podcast? Does that count as stress-reducing sounds?
We like to think so. But seriously, making playlists with calming music, whether it's classical nature sounds or even just your favorite chill music, can really change your energy and create a more peaceful vibe.
It's like making your own personal spa day for your ears.
Exactly. It's about being intentional with those sensory experiences and making them work for you to create a space that supports your well-being.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on how to deal with stress, what's the main thing you want our listeners to remember? What's that one thing they can start doing today to feel more in control of their stress?
We've talked about so much. The science behind stress, those adaptogens, lifestyle changes, mental tools, and even making our spaces better. It can feel overwhelming.
It really can. It's like I need a whole life makeover just to feel less stressed.
And that's exactly why if you only take away one thing from all of this, it should be this. Start small. Pick just one thing that speaks to you and actually commit to making it a part of your life.
So instead of trying to do everything at once, which to be honest just sounds stressful, we're talking about those tiny changes that add up over time.
Yes. And remember to be kind to yourself. Managing stress isn't about reaching some finish line. It's a journey, and it takes effort in making changes along the way. Some days will be tougher than others, and that's fine. The important thing is to keep coming back to the things that make you feel good. Keep trying new things to see what works for you. And remember that you don't have to go through this alone.
I love that. It's about making progress, not being perfect. And it's about finding those resources and strategies that help you deal with all the stressful stuff that life throws at you with a little more grace and resilience.
Yeah.
And hey, if you ever need a reminder of those strategies, you know where to find us.
That's right. We're always here to help you on your journey to a less stressed, more awesome you.
So until next time, remember to breathe, be kind to yourself, and maybe go give someone a hug. We'll see you on the next deep dive.
From all of us here at Pod Session, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and don't forget to visit our sponsor, topnaturalhealth.com, for special promo code pricing on all of the products mentioned in this episode. See you next time.